When the 17th century British poet John Milton said, "The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven," he was giving voice to an idea around which a science would emerge centuries later. That science of psychology gave to the world a startling concept, that of mental representation. The idea that the actual reality of the world is not the reality you and I necessarily perceive or understand. Instead, experimental psychology offered evidence that the reality we come to know is one of our own making, arising from our own minds in response to the world. Attitudes are a core kind of mental representation. We can't see or hear or touch an attitude. And yet, these invisible fragments of our minds, our likes and dislikes, determine so much. They shape the course of your life and mine, and through us, over time, they shape the course of entire civilizations. I hardly need to remind us that our combined global attitudes and beliefs about climate change is but one example of an attitude of such consequence that it will determine not only the quality of life this summer in Bilbao, but the very survival of this planet. Now, a little bit about me and my work. The single most decisive event of my early career was meeting and working with Tony Greenwald, a co-recipient of this award. We collaborated on part one of the 4-part research program in which I have been engaged these 45 years. In our early work, we prioritized the development of a method to measure implicit attitudes and beliefs, and it is today the most widely used instrument to study attitudes and beliefs by a simple count of published work. Along with Brian Nosek, a student in my lab in the 1990s, and with the support of 2 universities, Yale and Harvard, we took the unorthodox step of placing our test on a website for anybody to try out. To our astonishment, 40,000 tests of implicit bias poured in during the very first month. Why did this happen in 1998, even though the World Wide Web was still in its infancy? I would offer that the attraction of an experience with the implicit association test reveals just how curious people are about the content and quality of their attitudes. Our method, the IAT, besides being a research instrument, educates people about their most personal and intimate possessions, the thoughts and feelings of which they may not be aware. It provokes them to ask, why is this attitude or belief a part of me, even though it is clearly opposed to my values? What can I do about these unwelcome thumbprints of culture being stamped on my brain and without my permission? I speak this way because I'm among a small group of fortunate scientists who can be a subject in her own experiments. And this feature of our method handed me the single most transformative day of my life, the day I discovered that I possessed an attitude I did not know was lodged inside me. I discovered, much to my dismay, the presence of an implicit attitude in me that favors light skin over dark skin, European over African. Among the complexities of this discovery, as you no doubt recognize, is that I am myself dark-skinned. The feelings this discovery evoked in me reminded me of a televised debate in the 1960s between William Buckley, a white American right-wing provocateur, and James Baldwin, the brilliant African-American writer and civil rights activist. Baldwin spoke about what it must mean to be a Black American child, watching a Cowboys and Indians movie, cheering on a white Gary Cooper, the actor who plays the good cowboy, only to discover that you are the Indians, the people whose slaughter you've just been celebrating. So you see why I consider that day to be personally transformative, why these revelations of our hidden attitudes are essential, and why our own introspective powers cannot, but the scientific method can, nudge us to contend with these unpalatable sides of ourselves. Let me now describe a little bit the research that followed the early work. In part 2 of the research program, this time with the neuroscientist Liz Phelps, I tried to understand the neural basis of implicit attitudes. This work provided us the assurance that implicit attitudes could be detected in patterns of neural activation. We could see that the emergence of a racial attitude in behavior was correspondingly visible in specified subcortical regions of the brain. In part 3 of the research, with the developmental psychologist Liz Spelke and our students, we asked, how early do the roots of implicit attitudes emerge in development? The surprising answer that came back was very early in a child's life, and more surprising, at levels that are identical to the adult form of the attitude. In part 4, the most recent work, I have collaborated with the AI scientist Eileen Calliskin and my own past PhD student Tessa Charlesworth to search for evidence of attitudes in pre-trained large language corpora, such as 840 billion words from the internet or 4.5 million Google books. In these interrogations, we find evidence that parallel our discoveries of implicit attitudes, leading us to ponder the ways in which the words we speak and write not only reflect, but also reinforce and amplify existing attitudes. Today, I work with 7 remarkable students from the worlds of business, AI, physics, and psychology, who investigate the attitudes encoded in large language models like GPT, Claude, Llama, and Gemini. I can tell you that human attitudes and beliefs are clearly embedded in large language models, often emerging from LLMs even more starkly than in humans. Given the rapid and unregulated evolution of AI today, perhaps this BBVA Foundation Award will serve to alert the corporate owners of AI to more thoughtfully consider a technology powerful enough to determine the future of life on Earth. The BBVA Foundation Frontiers of Knowledge Award in the Social Sciences this year is sui generis in my experience, because it honors, above any single individual or even research team, an entire field of science. In choosing to recognize the 5 of us born in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, in bringing the world's attention to these ideas and discoveries, you recognize not only us, but our intellectual ancestors, who surely imagined but did not live to see a thriving science of attitudes become worthy of a recognition such as this. In the work I've done over the past 2 decades, my professional life has been enhanced by the presence of Topher Dial, who, with the masterful help of tea and cookies, presides over a highly productive and happy lab on the 15th floor of William James Hall. My personal and professional life has been immeasurably uplifted by the presence of R. Bhaskar, my partner, the most positive attitude object of my life.